everyone. Myself Ekta Dubey and along with me Mr. Chandrasekhar Iyer, who would be running the entire show. On behalf of the team Renalytics, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of our webinar, Reimagining Touch-Free CX in the New Normal. We all know in no span of time, the outbreak of pandemic has disrupted the whole economy, consumer behavior, purchase habits, and everyday lives. Companies are struggling to adjust to the new normal or working remotely and keeping their customers engaged and satisfied. Now, customer experience is a bridge between the company's effort and the customer's expectations, and both these face an uncertain future depending on the combat of the pandemic. The need of an hour today of the CX leader is to keep a real-time pulse on changing consumers' behavior and their preference by rapidly innovating to redesign journey and deliver positive and seamless experience. To start with our first session, I would like to welcome Mr. Jayant. To speak about him, he is a lifelong student of consumer behavior and a renowned industry speaker in a field of marketing insights, branding, communication, and customer experience. Currently, he is working as a Vice President, Marketing and Customer Services, Head Loyalty and Shoppers Insights at Reliance Retail Limited. Having 30 plus years of experience, his broad experiences spans sectors such as retail, FMCG, consumer durables, telecom, automotive, and media. He will be sharing his insights on navigating major shifts in long-term and short-term in pandemic impacting CX. Over to you, Mr. Jayant. You can start with your session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ekta. Thank you for your nice introduction and wish you, speedy recovery and all the best. My wishes to all the viewers today and the other eminent speakers on the panel. So I will be sharing experiences and whatever I say is based on my personal experience and is not to be taken as a statement from Reliance Retail in any way. I speak from 30 years of experience, starting with I have worked for 30 years in customer satisfaction, CRM, loyalty management, and now with CX. My background is from the research and the consulting industry, and I work with a lot of companies. I'm sure we can search each other's credentials pretty easily these days. So let's go and try and understand. When we talk about reimagining customer experience in a new normal, I would like to spend a few minutes on explaining why we do CX and therefore why we will see changes to the way we do it. And when we talk of a new normal, what is it that we talk about? What is this new normal? So quickly to come to the topic, you see, besides a lot of the buzzwords and systems, procedures, platforms that one talks about and hears so much when we talk about customer experience, what exactly is customer experience and why do companies do it? So all the big companies which are spending and investing so much on customer experience actually do that so that they can ensure a long-term relationship with their clients and their customers. That is the purpose. Relationships, we have in the industry, in the consulting industry, in the practicing industry, we've got a lot of buzzwords that we talk about. Today, I would like you to step back from those buzzwords and processes and procedures and think back of why we are doing this and think of the human beings which are involved. Our customers are human beings and we as companies want relationships with them, if possible lifelong, but that's a bit difficult to achieve in the current world. So that's the purpose that you are trying to achieve. Now, how do you have a relationship with your customer? To have a relationship with your customer, to have a relationship with anybody, for any relationship, you need to understand the people that you're going to have a relationship. What are their needs? What are their requirements? How do they behave? What are their values? Only when we do that are we able to design things for them, to reach out to them in various ways, communicate effectively with them, engage with them. Right? That's the purpose. All the processes that we put for CX is how to manage interactions, how to manage perceptions, how to manage relationships with them. So when we have to manage interactions, perceptions, and in the longer term a relationship, you are trying to ensure that you have a complete understanding of your customer. Where do we interact with our customers? We interact today in a omni-channel world. We are interacting with them on multiple channels. It was very good in the earlier days when we were interacting to them only through a single channel where it was a face-to-face interaction. You knew who you were interacting with. If you had good information, you could also understand what they wanted, what they believed in, and you were able to manage a human interaction. It was a one-to-one. But today, your customers are interacting with you in multiple channels. With a digitized world, you probably don't ever see them. You don't even know much about them unless and until you've got a very, very thorough way of managing data analytics. You really don't know too much about them. And yet you have to try and keep them satisfied. Yet you have to try and keep them happy with you. Yet you have to understand what they need or what is irritating them or what is the negative aspect that you must, clear out so that your relationship with them remains. So when we say we want to have a seamless relationship, we want to have seamless interaction across multiple channels. We are saying in a very simple word that we are trying to keep them happy with us, keep them happy with what we are offering, whichever kind of a company we may be, whether we are in FMCG, whether we are in retail, whether we are in automotive. But at the end of the day, we want our customers happy with us, satisfied with what we are offering, and keep coming back to us so that we have a long-term relationship. That's the objective. Now, when we talk about CX in the new normal, as it is, it was difficult enough to ensure CX in the old normal or in the regular kind of thing that we've been doing for years. Today, we are talking about in the new normal. So what is this new normal about? Again, we can delve into the technicalities of it, but just spend a second thinking. Our generation, the next generation, and the previous generation, the three generations alive today, our survival has never really been threatened. Post World War II, the people who are alive today, the humans who are alive today, have never really been, their survival has never really been threatened. We've all spent our lives fairly comfortably. There may be conflict areas, there may be a whole lot of other issues all over the world, but in general, there has never been the kind of a global threat of the kind that we are faced with today. Corona or COVID-19 has created the kind of scare, has threatened at a global level human survival. Even though mortality rates may be low, but one really doesn't know who's going to get affected and who may not survive. That has created a kind of a scare, a fear. That fear has created uncertainties, both for businesses and for individuals. Over 30 years of studying human behavior, one of my pet theories today is that nothing motivates people more than fear. And Corona has created fear. That fear has created uncertainty and volatility in virtually every aspect of human behavior, in every aspect of endeavor, every aspect of business. That is the problem that we are dealing with. So when we say the new normal and we talk about how people will behave, first thing that we must remember is that now we have a fear at a global level, fear and a threat of non-survival, fear that we may not get past this. That will change everything that we do as human beings. It is forcing us to reevaluate our basic understanding of what we can achieve in life, how we live. So if you look at everything that's happening today, To survive this, as per medical advice, as per WHO and as per whatever, we now have certain set of things which are happening. Social distancing, maintaining better hygiene, maintaining distance from other human beings. Right? All this has forced every behavior and every interaction that we had with each other, with society in general, with the way we consume things, with the way we buy things, with the way we, all consumption that we have, all of this has got affected. Which is why, see, it's very difficult to say till when Corona would last. How long we will have to keep on taking these measures. These measures on a human societal scale may be a temporary phase. What is 5 years? What is a 5 months, a 6 months, a year, or 2 years in a human lifetime? What is a decade in societal development? These are small periods in time. But these small periods in time, if you look at it, human societal development has taken jumps each time it has been faced with some sort of a crisis. This is the first major crisis that our generation and the coming generation has seen. We have not seen the kind of crisis that previous generations used to see. They have been through various such pandemics. They have been through global wars. We have not been. So this is the first time that we are seeing this. And what is it doing to us as consumers? A lot of us are working from home. Has that brought about changes? Phenomenal changes. We're sitting at home, you've got more time with home, you've got more time with family. The way that you evaluate your performance has changed. The way that you relate with your family has changed. What you do at home changes. Gender roles are getting, challenged and changed. There are challenges at every front. So we are talking of a scenario where people really don't know what all do they need to do to survive. That is what we can call a new normal. We really don't have a definition for that new normal yet. Everything is, it's so volatile. It's changing on a day-to-day basis. The day a vaccine is, actually found, things may change. Now, these changes, will they be permanent or will they be temporary? How long will we live with these changes? Very difficult to say. We are not experts and we are not soothsayers, and we can't really say when will it happen and how long will it last. But for all, since we study human behavior for a long time, we can say that what was happening in the past will not happen in the same way in the future. That much is certain. We have all come to realize that certain things are different. As consumers, a lot of consumers today, let's look at consumers. You can define consumers and you can segment them and bracket them in different ways. Let's look at them from a way of how their incomes have got affected. So there's a significant proportion of consumers who have had a loss of income or whose incomes have reduced. There is a significant proportion who probably are in professions where their livelihood and their incomes are fairly safe. The third category are those who happen to be a significant number, but a much smaller number, who happen to be in professions and businesses which have actually capitalized on the opportunity that the pandemic has thrown up and were actually doing better than before. So if you look at these three categories of consumers, those whose incomes have been affected generally have much lesser expendable incomes. And therefore, the choices of what they buy are much more constrained. They spend less, they spend more on essentials, less on things that are voluntary purchases, things that are not needed today, things that can be put off. So they're spending less on those. Even amongst essentials, they are downgrading from higher cost and more ostentatious consumption to choices which are servicing necessities and needs. So there is a slight fall in expendable incomes for these people, or major fall in expendable in some people, and therefore their choices are getting constrained. Those whose incomes are constant, not significant change, are also avoiding ostentatious consumption. Uncertainties and volatility of what's happening today is forcing them to reconsider what they do with their money. They are saving more, and these are trends that we've been studying for some time now. They're saving more and spending less. They may actually have as much money in hand as they had before, but because of the circumstances that are there, they are spending lesser and saving more. They are putting aside, I mean, things that have changed. This is one drastic change which is happening. We used to say that Gen Next and the Gen Ys and the Gen Zs, these people were the ones who were now going towards consumption and not saving enough. All of a sudden, these people have realized that they need to have a backup. They need to have funds for the future in case of things go very drastically wrong. They're beginning to save again. So old Indian values of savings have come back. So in a way, many of the conservative behaviors of the past are coming back. That's also part of the new normal. Besides this, so amongst those who are now earning more than before because they've capitalized on, on the opportunities that this thing has thrown up, you will find a different kind of consumption happening. May not be the kind of consumption that one would have on lifestyle earlier. Today, what they are trying to do is they are trying to build nest eggs. So finances will be planned in a different way. They're trying to create security for themselves. They're trying to put their health above other things. So they are trying to invest on health. They're trying to invest on their family. They are now talking more about things where, they give back a little bit more. So there are choices that, a lot of things which are happening today are also good opportunities for improving societal behavior, improving individual human behavior. This corona pandemic has thrown up such a change that we are now changing the way that we normally behave, which is what we therefore will call a new normal. What all will it affect? It affects everything, every aspect. So if you look at the world of finance, it's changing. If you look at education, it's changing. If you look at health, it's changing. And therefore, anything else which comes in towards FMCG, automotives, and any other consumption area, there will be changes with how the consumer will relate and will be able to interact with each of these categories. Now, once we understand that these changes will come in, what happens? What is the impact on CX with regards to this? So if you are looking at such major attitudinal, behavioral, and perceptual changes, what needs to happen with CX? So when we were talking face to face with people, we could understand and gauge their needs. Now we are doing it more and more on digital. And the pandemic has forced virtually all our companies to go rely even more heavily onto a digital interchange. Since people will come lesser and lesser to offices, lesser and lesser to shops, lesser and lesser to commercial establishments, and interact a whole lot more with these brands, with these corporates through the digital medium, we have to now move all our efforts, all our interaction more and more onto the digital medium, which is why we need to understand what do we do. For quite some time, organizations have been investing in processes and systems and platforms to take their interaction online, to take their interaction in a multi-channel process. With the advent of artificial intelligence, they're able to do a whole lot more in terms of getting data from multiple sources, putting it together, and therefore being able to plan a way in which we can interact a whole lot more easily and a whole lot more effectively with our customers. So, in a nutshell, this is what we're trying to do. Now let's try and look at it from a more in-depth kind of a situation. When we look at social distancing, That's something that all of us have to ensure that we do, just to ensure that we do not fall to this disease. What has it done to businesses? First, within the business itself, in terms of running their own operations at the employee level. So employees today may not be going to office, they're working from home. So how do you ensure that the corporate objectives, that the company's objectives are being met by employees who are no longer under the kind of supervision and no longer under the kind of a daily interaction, and therefore the kind of motivational aspect that office work used to bring in, the teams used to bring in. The teams are now disparate and spread far apart. So can we ensure in this kind of scenario that our employees are given the same kind of back-end support, the same kind of motivation, the same kind of preparation, training, same kind of overall feeling of a professionalism that office is to bring while they're sitting maybe in some cases hundreds of miles away? Yes, we can. We just need to bring in all those processes and systems into place. Thankfully, our IT professionals have been working on these for quite some time. So, this pandemic has come in only as an episode which forces us to speed up the kind of changes that we were bringing in our organizations. It helps to now bring into context and put into place some of these systems and processes that we were still dilly-dallying and arguing about or discussing about as do we need them, do we not need them. This pandemic is forcing us to realize, yes, that we need to do this and we need to do it at double quick speed. So in a way, this is a phenomenal opportunity for people. A lot of people who've been working for a long time, people like me, we need to upgrade. We need to now move into a digital world. No longer do we face, I'm talking to you right now, I can't see your faces. I don't know whether I'm making sense to you or not. But this is the new normal that we will need to operate. We all will have to change the way that we operate. But instead of looking upon this entire pandemic and the scenario as just a threat, we have to start looking at it as an opportunity. There is a phenomenal opportunity here now to do things slightly differently, but do things in a whole lot better fashion. And I actually believe that. We've been trying to do that in the organizations that we come from. I can tell you that, yes, with fits and starts, with errors and learning and relearning, we are doing it, and it's working. So downsides are balanced with opportunities. Threats are balanced by the new opportunities that we can see. Negativity that we face in this kind of a scenario is now being balanced with optimism. We are going to survive. We will work out of this. And that is what we need to take to everything that we do in our work and our profession. So when we talk about CX today, we are looking at a scenario where people have all kinds of apprehensions. Our customers don't know what they will get. We have to address those apprehensions. I'm sure all of you have ordered things online because you couldn't go out and shop. Many customers have ordered online for the first time. So a lot of customers who were ordering online before are ordering a whole lot more online. What is their expectation? Their expectation is to get something that they want. In many cases, if they don't get what they wanted returned. They want their money to be safeguarded. Because of the issues here and because of the various problems, most of the online channels have been saying that you pay upfront. The moment a person has paid and is waiting to get something to them, there is a huge apprehension in their mind. What will I get? Am I getting my money's worth? Am I getting what I ordered? That's the first aspect of CS that we must remember. We have to eliminate the apprehension and the fear that our customer is facing. How do we do that? By effectively communicating from them from the moment they've logged into us. Try and understand what they're doing. This is where a lot of the interaction on online sales hasn't changed completely in the way it should, along with the, in this scenario. We're still trying to do things in the old way. Are we still just, adapting in a small manner to how we interact with that customer? Are we assuring them in a new way? Are we assuring them adequately in this scenario? When you go to a shop and a brick and mortar store, you're actually seeing what you're getting. And you have the reassurance that I can change it if I don't find it to my life. First, I see it and take it, so the chances of my needing to change it are less. Now, I'm simply ordering over a digital medium. I don't know really what I will get. I'm apprehensive. When I get it, if it meets my expectations, great. If it does not meet my expectations, what am I going to do? How do I resolve that situation? I will need to send it back. There have to be systems to ensure that it is taken back, that they are either replaced or reimbursed for that. Are there good systems? Many of the companies are doing it. Many of them are not. But what I don't see in this case is additional effort at reinforcing that belief in the customer. They're still trying to behave in a similar manner as before. Where is the new normal here? I don't really see it yet, but we are working on that. You will need to ensure that the customer has more real-time ability to talk. One of the things that we are doing slightly wrongly in this area is that we are trying to replace human interaction entirely with the digital one. We have to use the digital medium to reinforce. We have to bring in a human face to the digital interaction. Many of these technologies that we are adopting today are actually coming in from many of those developed countries where there are lesser humans and therefore more costly human time. And we are trying to replace that with technology only. But in India, we've got more human beings. We don't need to replace human interaction. We need to augment it. So the technologies that we are employing should be such that a customer could reach another human being, and that human being has adequate technology to be able to understand, to be able to get information about that customer, their interaction, what do they want, and be able to respond back to them quickly. This is the area that we need to be working a little bit more upon. Okay? So there's a huge opportunity here. Rather than replace human beings, we have a lot of customer service help desks. We used to have people interacting with people. And in this scenario, it appeared that they are going to lose their jobs. It appeared that they are no longer relevant, they are no longer needed because we are moving to technology platforms. But that's not true. We need to be able to train these people to use technology platforms and have the kind of interactions that we are having right now. Won't you like, if you needed to talk to somebody in your bank, in the airline that you're going to travel with, in the retail chain that you bought something from, with the brand that you bought something from, that when you call them, there is an intelligent human being sitting on the other side, and you can have this kind of face-to-face conversation. Would that reassure you a whole lot more? I think that it would. Just talking to an IVR, just sending across an SMS, just getting a rating is not the CX that we should be talking about. We should be talking about reassuring our people, hand-holding them, taking them through the process. If they are confused about what they need to buy, do they have the kind of an intelligent human being available to them to guide them through the step-by-step process, how to evaluate what do they want? Those are the kind of CX systems that we need to be putting into place. So there are phenomenal amount of challenges that we have, but those challenges are also throwing up a huge amount of opportunities. How much time do we have, Ekta?
Sir, the time is up, but you can take 2 minutes.
No, great. So we will. What I would say is that I hope that we do not look upon this pandemic as a situation only with a negativity. There is a huge amount of positive influence that we can bring in. As practitioners of CX, we can lead, we can show the way to our organizations, a way out of the kind of negative influences that are there. We can really do, we can make a huge difference here. Whatever, if people have questions or whatever, and whatever time you have, you're most welcome to. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jayant. Do we have any questions? I have already shared the guidelines that you can raise your hands. I'll ask you to name yourself. Then you can introduce your name, your company, organization, and put a question to sir, and he'll answer it. And we also have a Q&A after the entire sessions, like after the fireside chat. So if you intend to ask, then also it's fine. But we are open to questions now for at least 1 or 2 questions. Yeah. Okay, anybody raising hands? No, I can't see it. Okay, I think, sorry, anyone? Yeah. Okay, I think, sir, we can have questions after the fireside chat. People might come up with questions. Okay, yeah. So, thank you. Yeah, so we can move on to our next session. Thank you, Mr. Jayant, for your interesting sessions. Moving ahead, for our first session, I would like to welcome Mr. Rohit Srivastava. To speak about him, he has a rich combination of consulting and corporate experience in creating and running customer experience measurement, management, and improvement programs linked to strong history outcomes. He currently heads CX strategy and design at Vodafone Idea Limited, managing NPS, customer journey, communication, culture building, and more of its 250 million plus base customer. He will be sharing his insights, the world of CX to reimagine, how to engage customers in new reality. Over to you, Mr. Rohit, to start with your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ekta. I'll ask the quintessential question, can everyone hear me and can everyone see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. A very good afternoon to everyone. Hope everyone is safe and taking good care of your health. At the outset, let me tell you, this photograph has nothing to do with my presentation. It's just that it's a nice Friday afternoon, and if things were the way they were 6 months back, some of us would have been possibly driving down a road similar to this, looking forward to the Independence Day weekend. So my topic is CX in the new normal. I'm going to speak about small steps that make a big difference in creating a customer journey and driving customer engagement, not just in the current situation, in the current pandemic, but beyond, right? So, I'm going to speak a couple of points on each of the broad aspects of the customer journey. Starting with discovery, when the customer is looking to search and figure out what he wants to purchase and when and where does he or she want to purchase. A large part of discovery historically in India has been about touch and feel, right? As Indians, we've always liked to handle the products. Obviously, e-tailing companies have, over the past few years, induced a change in customer behavior. Most consumers today are much more comfortable in terms of assessing their products online. What is, however, needed, in the current situation is for companies to create complete user journeys of their product in the form of a video, maybe interactive, and post them online on own websites and third-party portals. So really, if you're able to create a microcosm of not just an ad, but actually how your product is going to be used, that's going to help consumers to make a choice. And where will you be putting up, these journeys of your products? Really, the customers of today are no longer, as we know, out on the roads. They reside on several digital and social media platforms. So we will need to be present on all the platforms where our customers are present. And it is not as easy as having a social media manager milking the pandemic in terms of creating engagement points like, what are the top 5 things that you're doing in this pandemic, and are you putting on your mask, are you washing your hands? But it goes much deeper into creating a complete 360 degrees encirclement of the consumer. I've put in 4 or 5 of the examples which one would need to do. There are much more. The idea is essentially to create a laddering approach in terms of slowly but surely hooking on the consumer to our social media platforms and then onto our products. And hence the engagement cannot just be product focused. It has to be people focused. It has to be society focused, because right now everything is being judged. Every company is being judged on how it is engaging its customers. Authentic stories will connect much more than hard advertising when we speak about social good or indeed employer branding. So once the customer has kind of agreed and decided it is our product he or she wants to purchase, how do we enhance, how do we ease out the buying capabilities? Now, obviously, online shopping, etc., credit cards, debit cards are something that have been in vogue for quite some time. But we have a lot of non-digital touch points, which are quite popular amongst customers. When you speak of USSDs, when you speak of IVRs, when you speak of SMSs, when you indeed speak of stores. And then you have increased online payment options like wallets, like UPI, like BhimPay, etc. So it's about integrating and matching the columns of each of our payment wallets, being able to be integrated with each of these touch points, because we would have a segment of customers comfortable with using each of these channels. So the idea is how to have seamless access for the customer, all kinds of customers, to make their payments at their channels of choice and channels of access. So once we have enhanced our buying capabilities, it's about expanding the buying reach, and Telecom really took a couple of steps forward in this aspect in terms of getting anyone to recharge or pay bills for anyone else. So this has helped increase our digital footprint hugely among the digitally unconnected tier 2, tier 3 town customers, right, who've been on feature phone handsets, who are used to walking across to the retailer and buying those paper recharges. The cashbacks, etc., that we have used as carrots for helping people recharge for others are more than offset by the retailer margin that we would have otherwise incurred. And accurate business analytics and business intelligence systems actually help target what customer would be comfortable for recharging within his social circle, within his circle of communication, within his family's friends, etc. So the hit rate for this has helped a 2x increase in the proportion of digital recharges in the last few months. Once a customer has purchased a product, what is critical is to get the customer's consent on various channels of reach. Now let me explain this. A lot of these channels, WhatsApp or apps or web portals or e-bills, interactive bills, HTML-based interactive properties, etc., are available and have been designed for customer convenience. Why I am pointing it out at the onboarding stage is all of these require consent, all of these require customer consent, and in an era of reducing touch with the customers in the current situation, the point of purchase is a very, very critical connect to get the customer's consent on all of these channels. So either when the customer is making the purchase or when the customer is activating his or her service, at that point in time, it is very critical to get the customer's consent on some of these channels so that the communication with customer is smooth going forward. Telstra in Australia was faced with the challenge of having the best app and having the most number of features on its app, but customers were simply not using it. And if we're speaking of an educated, high literacy rate developed country like Australia, you can imagine the kind of effort that we in India would need to put in to create small how-to videos, demo videos for each transaction. So not an overall demo video for everything that can be done for the app or web portal or indeed remotely, but for every single small transaction that can be done on the app can be created into a 2-minute video. Telstra did it quite aggressively on its Twitter handle and was able to drive traffic and transactions on its app by over 250% in the space of 3 or 4 months, in the space of broadly a quarter. So really, creating these hooks, creating demos for, even reading your bills, smart bills, interactive bills, WhatsApp service, Google phone line, which has been rolled out by Vodafone Idea in India. Again, each of these are essentially designed to make it very easy for the customer for that first or second usage for its various features and services and product information dissemination. So that's something that will definitely need to be done going forward. When we look at regular usage, I quite like this photo. The idea I'm trying to portray is not just for renewal products or even for single usage products. It is very critical to try and get the customer to look at a complete bouquet of products and get the customer to purchase accessories, allied products. In telecom's case, if it's if the customer is signed on for voice and data, then for an allied caller tune service, which would help the customer put in various kinds of caller tunes, and I'm not speaking of film songs, but caller tunes in terms of on business hours, off business hours, meetings, etc., which are really, really helpful. So how are we able to present a bouquet and not just individual services? How are we able to modify our products to suit the customer behavior? So if it's about the customer using more of our product, more of our data on weekends, or more of our data post working hours, in the 12 hours, 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. So are we able to modify our product features so as to give the customer the freedom to stack up his data, his weekly data quota for binge watching Amazon Prime or Netflix or Hotstar on the weekends, now that a lot of new movies are getting released. So there are a lot of such things which one will need to re-examine each one's products to be able to match to the customer's usage habit. I heard the earlier gentleman speak about NPS, TNPS. I couldn't agree more. So historical ways of measuring NPS, TNPS, flashing fancy dashboards, putting it in people's KRAs are great, but they are only going to take you so far. Telecom companies, the best CX companies, what they've done is over the years, data mined their wealth of NPS and transactional NPS data into correlating with internal business metrics, right? And now that those metrics are identified, now the idea is to be proactive, is to have these lead indicators being measured, and hence a quasi NPS rolled out, right? So just doing digital NPS will only help you reach X percentage of your customers. Face-to-face NPS is going to be fairly unlikely, because the reach of face-to-face interviews is not going to be available in the current situation. And hence, it's going to be critical that we create these internal metrics as the analytically defined drivers of NPS, create process audits, make sure some of these metrics are in place and are being tracked and improved on a daily basis. Having said that, something that has helped us is something called rollout feedback. So every new rollout that we are doing, every communication, every product, every service that we are rolling out feedback along with that service. So that helps us get immediate point on time feedback about any new rollout. So initial wrinkles can be ironed. Our communication, one-on-one communication, would need to be made more exciting. We have a wealth of communication that goes out to customers, which are transaction confirmations, which are product renewal messages, which have till today been quite straightforward, quite dull and boring, if I may use that term. But if we are able to create positive content on each of those messages, and obviously believable and relevant. So if it's a transaction confirmation on, a voice and data product, that your recharge is successful. Hey, do you know Amazon Prime is available in our partnership at just X rupees? Or hey, do you know here is the latest content which you can enjoy free of cost on our content tab? Or if the customer has raised a complaint, hey, do you know our despite the pandemic, 80% of our workforce is online, is working hard, and indeed our network engineers are out there in the field trying to set your network right. So I'm saying some of these believable positive aspects when you are able to put into communication would really help, because otherwise the touch with customers is kind of going down as we speak, right, given the pandemic. So are we able to proactively speak positively in our one-on-one communication with our customers? That's quite helpful. When it comes to customers raising queries, requests, complaints, how are we able to manage costs? How are we able to manage our resources? Because with the pandemic and with the whole reverse migration of people, obviously there would be no company in India who would be able to say that my call center operations have not been hit at all, right? So how are we able to create that human touch? And the best CX companies are working on digital chatbots. So even when the customer is dialing an IVR, the idea is about activating the chatbot on the customer's mobile screen, so that the customer gets a human interface, the customer gets a kind of human experience, but it's all AI-based chatbot. Even when he's dialing the IVR, saves a hell lot of money on every such transaction, which can be migrated from a call center agent to a chatbot. And indeed, in this current scenario, it's not just the money, but the customer experience, which is kind of salvaged. There are transactions which do still require the customer to visit a retail store. There are various regulatory documentations which need to be submitted, which till date, are not allowed by regulatory to be accepted in the form of scanned images. How can we make the customers travel? How can we make the customer experience at the store safe, that given the fact that there is going to be queue outside the store because of social distancing and hygiene norms, how are we able to create an appointment schedule where customers can online book an appointment and go to our store, so that not only is the customer's waiting time reduced, even the preparation for the kind of issue that the customer is visiting for can be done beforehand, which would really help A, improve customer experience, B, make sure there's no queuing outside the store. We are actively looking at improving our self-service kiosks into, imparting even more features and benefits so that the customers do not really need to actually enter the store and have a human interaction at all. There are priority journeys that we are definitely looking to roll out, which would then involve customers, a large chunk of our customers who would only be visiting the stores for those 3 or 4 kind of journeys, and which then can be optimized into a far, far quicker transaction time. The whole ecosystem of not just the retailers, but the B2B ecosystem of warehouses, distributors, stockists, etc. have been impacted. Now, these are typically the invisible ones that make our company products, that help our company products continue moving, but they have not been visible so far to the customer because the customer has only visited the retail store. Again, the best CX companies, telecom, etc., have in the past aided and armed our warehouses, stockists with digital based customer service apps. So in a certain pandemic, our reach goes from X retail stores to 2X retail stores plus warehouses, stockists. So a customer does not need to walk 1 kilometer to the retail store. He or she can just walk 200 meters to a nearby stockist, which he would not have known existed, for the same customer service that he needed to have walked to the retail store for. So are we arming our entire ecosystem digitally to be able to service customers for their queries, requests, complaints, thereby reducing crowding, thereby reducing the need to really go long distances, which no one wants in this days and times. Moving on to how do we create enhanced, how do we create something which extends much beyond the pandemic? That was really my opening line, right? The idea is not to look at 31st December or March 21 as something where we would want to go back to how we were 6 months back. No, the idea is to really endorse this shift and really help our customers change their behavior to kind of sustain something for life, for the next 50 years. Obviously, the pandemic hit every industry hard. Every industry overnight had a huge number of resources, retail promoters, feet on street, sales personnel who were without a job, who didn't know what to do. The best CX companies, what they did was somehow tried and armed them with basic system access. Everyone obviously had a phone to be able to reinvent their work in terms of telephonically creating leads, putting in reminders for payments and recharges, cross-selling, upselling, getting referrals onto the network. So, through some basic training, some basic orientation, we were able to make sure these resources were continuing to be absorbed by the company, being able to make money. It was a sustainable business model, right? Because no company can just keep sustaining without the money coming in, to put it very bluntly. So, a lot of these are now kind of moving up the value chain in terms of customer retention, and that has kind of helped. So, always be on the lookout for how can you re-resource your resources to continue operating. Extend the life cycle. The whole aspect about product renewals is about, expiries on a certain day. Companies need to understand a customer lost is 5 times harder to regain than a customer who is still on board and somehow you're able to retain him. So how are you able to play around with your product expiry? How you're able to play around with the whole journey? Very frankly, very few companies had till now given much attention to the customer coming back journey. This whole aspect was more about, keep him on board for maybe 30 more days, give him a couple of sweeteners, see if he comes back. Otherwise, kind of get him off the system. So this pandemic has induced a whole creation of content, communication, product, allied services, all of these hooks in extending the customer, the post-expiry customer retention journey, not just into 30 days, but into 90 to 120 days. So that has shown a lot of results in terms of, if you're able to extend your product validity or your product life by 30 days or 15 days free of cost for the customer, and give him a certain number of hooks to kind of get the customer to repurchase and renew his or her subscription. That's something that has helped save a lot of money, which would have otherwise been spent in trying to get the customer back, especially in this pandemic. My final thoughts is, as I said, we should look to build something much more sustainable than just trying to survive. And I think the previous gentleman also pointed it out. It's not about surviving. We need to use this as an opportunity to build something sustainable. Yes, consumer mood is kind of negative. The scenario is bleak. There's very little touch and feel which the customer is doing at this point in time. But that's been the case for many companies, right? So Harley Davidson was facing bankruptcy because customers were not really buying its products. Or Firefox bicycles, for example. What they did was create an emotional connect, create a sense of belonging, if you may call it that, an experience, by building a community, being off, whether it is offline or online. So the idea is to, get your customers together, and even if they speak negative, that's fine, because customers today are much more mature, much more intelligent, much more perceptive. They will just drown out any noise about your company and only speak and only listen to genuine feedback, and that feedback will only help you. So are we able to bring our customers together, create a sense of belonging, create positivity, create authentic stories, not just stories going from company to customer, but stories going between customers? I mean, the Sunday morning Harley owners motorbike rides, which are, I think, active in virtually every major metro in India. It's not about the company saying, please come together and, ride Harleys. It's about customers creating those linkages amongst themselves. 5 years back, who would have thought that the epitome of automobile luxury would not be Rolls-Royce, but Tesla, right? If you think about it. And that's the power of community building. That's the power of sense of belonging. And really, we all need to do that to build a brand way beyond the pandemic, and not just something till 31st December 2020 or 31st December 2021. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rohit Srivastav. That's me.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rohit, for the interesting session. We do have questions. The question is from Mr. Ramu Guntur. Mr. Ramu, you can introduce your name, your company, your organization, and ask a question to Mr. Rohit.
Yeah, thank you, Ekta. Yeah,
kindly on your video.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you, Rohit, for detailed insights. Couple of things were in practice and couple of things it's a learning for me. Now I have a scenario. Am I audible first?
Yes, initially, but now you are. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, good. So I have a scenario. My name is Ramu Guntur. I work for a products company as a product head. And we have a scenario where I thought of supporting my marketing team. And scenario is like that. We develop applications for one of the wellness company, the company which does this health and wellness. So when I say the health and wellness, that is which is services are involved with human connect or human touch. That is massage centers, spas, salons, right? So the applications which we develop is primarily cater for this area. Now, due to this pandemic situation, their business are coming down, and due to which we already have our own indication, our own numbers coming down, falling down. So with the help of CX, how do I motivate my marketing team and help my customers? That's my question.
So this can actually turn into an hour-long consulting session. You're speaking of your product being in the health and wellness category?
Yes.
Yeah, so health and wellness as a category, you will need to reach where your customers are, and depending on the city, like there are a few cities that have opened some of these health and wellness salons and spas, and some cities which still have not. You would need to tie in, and these are just thoughts off the top of my head. As long as you can open up new channels of customer touch. I'm from marketing, so I know the only thing which excites a marketeer is the perspective of oncoming business, right? So as long as we are able to open up a couple of channels of touch, and it need not even be channels of usage. They just need to be channels where the customer can see, perceive, assess, experience immersively online as to what our products are. That will then still, start the waterfall to an extent of, either customers demanding it with Urban Clap services, or customers, looking for it online. So if you can, create couple of these alternate channels, need not be a multi-crore idea, a multi-crore sales idea in the first month, but just the fact of some of these ideas getting accepted by customers in a new channel, the thrill of that is something that will be extremely exciting.
Yeah, thank you. To help you with the
here.
Yeah.
This is Jayan here.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Guntur, now what you are trying to do is, you are trying to service an existing industry, right?
Correct.
Right. Now, these people which were operating in a manner where they have salons or where they have therapy centers, and yet their customers will end up coming to them and they'll be given that service.
Right.
Now, at this point in time, given the social distancing and given the kind of fear that people have of contracting the disease, almost nobody would be going to such centers.
Correct.
People are not going to doctors and to hospitals despite having serious illnesses because they are afraid of catching the disease. Right?
Right.
So for people to, now you will have to wait for some time for this industry to bounce back. Where actual physical touch is concerned or actual physical contact is concerned, these people would be one of the worst hit. Now, if you are able to translate or transform these businesses from a non-touch base to something else, that is where you should be thinking of. That's the new normal that you have to target. So they may not be able to give physical massages, but can they help people to do physiotherapy on their own? Can there be sessions that can allow them that this is how you make it into a self-help scenario? So instead of trying to give them a physical massage, can you help them by, prescribing specific, means and methods of healing themselves? People's concern for health and well-being is much more than before. But that doesn't mean that they will go out and get themselves a massage yet. So you will have to think slightly differently. That business itself will have to transform.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jain.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take one more question because we have actually 3-4 questions lined up, but we don't want to miss on the timing, but we'll surely take after Saurabh's session. Everybody gets a chance to get their questions answered, no doubt. So one more question, I think it's from Mahia Ghosh. So if you can just put your question, Mahia, and then we can move on to the next session.
Sure. Thanks, Ekta. This has been a great session so far. So thank you so much, both of you, for taking us through the presentation. My question is, can you help with like, according to you, what are some of like top 2 or 3 Indian companies who have, who have come up with some great strategies, CX strategies over last few months? If you can tell us about their success story, that would be really inspiring to hear.
To an extent, Mahua, I mean, every company has been trying its best, right? And as Jayant also said, see, a lot of it is also to do with the kind of industry that you are in. But obviously,
Across industry, like.
So the companies which
Top
have, so I'll tell you what, the companies who have already had some kind of strategy, some kind of approach in place before the pandemic, in terms of engaging with their customers directly without the need third party. Those are the companies which are now bearing the, like for the example I gave on NPS analysis. Now companies who've done this NPS correlation, who know what is the exact causality of internal metrics to output NPS, are able to switch on immediately to this pandemic mode, if I may speak of. So really telecom companies, so Airtel has done it pretty beautifully. Domino Pizza was the first one who tried to address the customer's concern on social distancing, etc., with its no touch, etc. Way back in, I mean, I think in the first week itself of pandemic of lockdown, way back in March. So these are a couple of companies that come to mind immediately as having done a great deal of work in engaging their customers.
Okay, can I add to that? You see, I won't want to name individual companies because I cannot endorse the individual brands. But let me give you 2 sectors which have done phenomenal work post the pandemic. And as Rohit said, these people were already working in these areas before, and they've leveraged those strengths phenomenally, and the maximum amount of impact has been made. Look at education. So children's education, the way that all that education and all schools have gone online, they have been able to leverage new technologies in the best possible manner to service their customers. Some of the best CX has been done by service providers in the education space. They're constantly in touch with their customers. They're constantly upgrading systems for the schools as well as for the students. So some of the best work, to my mind, has been happening in education area. Another area which has been doing phenomenally well, where lots of companies are doing very well, besides telecom, is finance, banking and financial systems. Tremendous amount of effort has gone in there. If you look at some of the better banks, they have really put into place systems where customers are, they don't really need to visit the branch for virtually anything. The kind of system that I was speaking of earlier, where they also got human interface and they've got very well supported, backends, are happening at the banking space. So 2 of the areas which I would say which have been leading the CX effort today are banking and education.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Rohit and Mr. Jayant, for answering the questions. Now, moving on to the next session, I would like to welcome Mr. Saurabh Lakhanpal, who's to speak about him. Mr. Saurabh is a domain specialist across Avaya's customer experience solution. He's an avid CX advocate and has 12 years of experience in providing contact center and workforce optimization solutions. He has worked in roles like pre-sales, solution consulting, and sales specialist across leading global organizations. And he will be sharing his insights on transform your agents into super agents to deliver the best CX. Over to you, Mr. Saurabh, to start your session. Thank you.
Thanks, Ekta. I hope I'm audible and my screen is visible.
Yes, it's clear and you're clear, yeah.
All right. So, to start with, then, if you look at an organization as defined by the experiences it creates, how it connects people and things, and in ways that offer more immersive, more productive, and more memorable experience. And by memorable, I mean the feel good experiences. And that's the key also, right? By offering technology that enables discretional effort and better outcomes, We need to ensure that we can provide experiences that really matter to people. Hi everyone, my name is Saurabh Lakhanpal and I work with Avaya India as contact center specialist. In the next 15-20 minutes, let's look at how we can create experiences which are memorable for not just the customers but also for your employees too. Organizations need to focus on effortless experiences, and the effortless experiences provided to the everything customer, a more demanding customer than ever. The everything customer, if you look at the slide, they want to be connected but left alone. They don't want you to poke your nose in everything they do. They want to be treated equally but served uniquely. They expect things, but they expect the unexpected things. They want the systems to be fully featured, but with less effort, which is effortless. And delivering on the CX ambitions for these kind of customers is more difficult than ever. And in the current pandemic, it has become more difficult. However, providing effortless experiences can be as simple as providing fewer products or involving the need for fewer choices, not more, right? Making it consistent wherever you are in the world. A great example is as simple as Starbucks. You getting a coffee. I bet there are a few in the audience who will head for a Starbucks just because they know what they're getting, right? Consistency is effortless. You don't need to put in effort for that. And then effortless, it means effortless should be there for the staff too. It's just not for the customers. And if you look at the essential customer experience, this is based on the Gartner's strategic roadmap for the customer service and support technologies. It outlines 4 key pillars that organizations need to build on into their customer experience programs, which is powered by AI and IoT. These are getting connected. This is all about designing better connections for customers into the organization so that they can connect effortlessly with whom and how they want to be in chat, mobile, or within an app. Next is orchestrating processes. This ensures that customers and employees have everything they need at their fingerprint, be it in knowledge, subject matter experts, real-time transactional and communication insights, so that each engagement is effortless and positive. Third pillar is managing resources. This is all about empowering your employees, connecting them with everything they need, and ensuring a positive employee experience from recruitment to onboarding, from coaching, development through to retention. Actually, around every aspect of the employee journey, matters. And the last one is knowledge and insights. This underpins the customer experience. So it's about getting insights, knowledge, guidance, and next best actions to customers and employees, to provide the best possible experiences. So if you need to redefine the customer experience, you must bring together these 4 pillars. But if you look at no two organizations are alike, nor do they define their CX strategy the same on how to address the many and emerging modalities, devices, and apps within a journey, right? Be it digital, voice, or physical, and that too across various touch points for their customers. So this we call it as customer experience economy. It differs from organization to organization, and the customer experience economy is moving towards the multi experiences now, which is focused on customer experience and employee experience equally. And it's not just about the customer experience. And don't confuse the multi experience with omni channel solutions, because the key difference between an omni channel and a multi experience is the core. Omni channel is all about technology, whereas multi experience, if you talk about, is all about people, be it customers or your employees. And this difference actually marks the shift from technology literate people to the people literate technology. And the relationship between good employee experience and good customer experience is obvious. A happier, a better prepared agent will deliver superior customer service than the one who is disgruntled and uninformed. Current trends in the industry also suggest that the industry is moving toward multi experiences. The marketplace is becoming saturated with better customer experiences. So almost all of the brands are working towards that. So now brands must reach that next competitive frontier, which is the employee or agent experience. And as the previous speakers also mentioned, the automation is proliferating into the contact center, and with it agents will become, or agents will receive the increasingly difficult requests from the customers, and they would be placing greater importance on the agent. I mean, organizations need to place the greater importance on agent empowerment also. And when it comes to shaping the customer experience economy, customer perceptions and the related feelings are the result of both the one-off and the cumulative effects of all interactions they have within organizations, employees, touch points, interfaces, systems, or products, everything combined, right? Same is true for the employee experience as well. The employee perceptions and feelings are caused by the one-off and the cumulative effect of interactions with the employers, customers, partners, leaders, teams, processes, tools, everything included, right? And positive experiences basically drive the employee acquisition and retention also. And EX is what powers CX, right? Employee experiences are really important to focus on as part of your ambitions to provide better customer experiences. What is needed is staff to be engaged and empowered to provide discretional effort, and in doing so they create those memorable experiences for customers. As you can see, CX is organization wide. It means embracing every part of the organization regardless of title or function. The bottom line is, when employees are engaged or empowered, they apply discretionary effort in everything they do to boost the customer experiences and drive results, right? Everybody know a happy employee is a happy, results in a happy customer, right? And the employee experience basically can depend on multiple factors, like the culture of the organization, technology they use, physical workspaces, policies, etc., etc. There are multiple things which come into picture. Now let's look at how technology can improve the employee experience, because it's the employee experience which is the road to the customer experience. And it's tough for agents to be engaged when it's hard just to get your work done. The way you can transition from agents to super agents is you make them more knowledgeable. Agents should have an easy access to vast knowledge available across the organization, be it human knowledge in form of supervisors, SMEs, or literature. Provide them with the relevant knowledge articles based on the customer context. Use the customer context from automation or AI, and then provide the relevant knowledge articles. Use the guided processes to support agents through the entire interaction, right? So if they have the guided processes, they would be better able to answer the questions which customers are posing, instead of spending time on what the process is. You can help them being more productive to ease the transition as well. And you can provide them with the visibility of how productive they are as compared to the rest of the team. Visibility to trends, whether they are improving or downgrading on various KPIs, because a healthy competition, if you look at, is always beneficial to improve the productivity. Provide them with the modern agent desktops and provide consolidated information from multiple systems through that desktop only. It takes a lot of time, and if you look at multiple organizations with agents, there are almost 3 to 5 interfaces that they have to go through to get that information or resolve the query. So make your agent's life easy by providing them a consolidated interface for all the systems that you have. And the systems which you provide to them must be intuitive enough to help them during the call. the AI and ML based assistance to provide them with the quick and relevant resources during the call itself, and let the systems take care of the quality monitoring and the shift your monitoring processes, and you can actually shift your resources from that mundane activity of doing quality monitoring to the coaching processes. Help them utilize, give them coaching utilizing the resources that you are using on the quality process. Scoring of calls through the system, so that it can be done objectively using the same criteria for all agents, and you can avoid the human bias there. This also helps with understanding voice of the customer better, as you get information by evaluating 100% of the calls, because a automated system would evaluate 100% of the call, while if you want to do it manually, you would need a lot of resources there, and there would be other factors involved, like human bias and cherry picking. Those kind of stuff will always be there. But if you leave it to the system, it gets automated, and you get that intuitiveness in place. And at last, but not the least, is give them insights to help the customers better. Give them a view of the customer history or context of the interaction, why the customer is reaching out to them. The customer has already maybe interacted with the bot, and then pass on the context to them, and provide them with the visual customer journeys, or the capability to drill down on it as well. The embed your processes and case management into the agent desktop itself, right? As I already mentioned in the previous point, as also you can also integrate your contact center and the back office processes and teams, etc. also, to provide the more insights for the agents. And combining all these superpowers will result in an in an experience which is awesome, and then it in turn will result into an amazing customer experience. And when we combine the CX and EX, here is how the journey will look like. I have tried to link it back to the 4 pillars that I initially discussed: just getting connected, process orchestration, managing resources, and knowledge and insights. And I understand the no two customer journeys are same, and this multi-experience journey actually illustrates the various steps that customers and employees take when they interact with an organization. The employees interact with the internal organization, or customers interact from an outside view. This journey shows how the 4 pillars come together to optimize both the customers and employee experience. It starts with proactively notifying the customers, and then giving them self-serve options. Those self-serve options again supported with the AI. And then for industries where the payment needs to be taken, or card data needs to be taken, supply or augment that with the PCI compliance as well, so that security is built in. Customers don't worry about their information. Then if needed, if no agents are available in the at that current point in time, offer them a callback, which will. And then when the agent is available, when you want to route to the agent, leverage the available context which is already there, insights and AI to pair and match the best suitable agent, and then hand it over to the agent. And when you hand it over to the agent from self-service, do provide the context to the agent as well, so that he knows where the customer left on the self-service channel, or what next he should answer. Instead of just saying that how may I help you, he can start with a very meaningful conversation there, if the context is there. Then to help that agent support the customer better, provide the guidance to him. It can be on-screen guidance using the analytics or the AI capabilities which are there in the systems. Provide them with the knowledge through the knowledge management articles, the FAQ articles, and that too relevant to what the customer is asking, instead of just these standard knowledge access. Provide them with the access to the resources, so not everything can be resolved by a front-ending agent. He might need to go back to a back office team to check on the maybe on the status or some information. So provide them that access right there from the agent desktop. From supervisor's perspective, give them the access to live monitoring, so that if necessary they can barge in into the conversations if required from the agent point of view. Then they can manage the cases on that same interface itself, and then through the backend integration, that source data can be source applications can be updated. Moving on, the agent completes the interaction, and then is when you gather the customer feedback, right? This is very important. And then after the feedback is gathered, you measure the performance, you review the performance of the agents against the KPIs that you have defined, or the SLAs, or the targets that they are there, and you look at how improvements can be done in the real time. Then you look at or review the staffing, based on the agent quality, the adherence or performance, and then develop the improvement plans according to those KPI, the information that you're getting from the previous steps, right? And then you plan your workforce. You develop the forecast, the work schedules for them, the performance plans to meet your organization's goals, the SLAs that you define, and in parallel train and coach your agents as well. Roll out the trainings and coachings using the history which is there, or use AI predictions there to train and coach your agents. And then at last is what you do is you review your processes. You identify what processes are there in my organization that are running, whether there are any failures, are there any bottlenecks or inefficiencies, where I need to develop any improvement plan across, as something that you look at, right? And it's all ends with the support, which is the right support and guidance at the right time when the agent need, and not he does not have to make effort for it. It should be effortless. And the key takeaway that I want you to take is you synchronize the customer and employee experience to meet the demands of the experience economy and the everything customer that we looked at earlier. And how you can intelligently transition the customer needs from self-service AI to a human interaction, and then deliver a personalized journey across the entire organization, from front office to back office, for the superior CX. And we live in a world where organizations no longer compete on the products and services, but instead on the experience they provide to their customers and employees. And the experience that is personalized, connected, intuitive, informed, is an experience that is remembered by people. And we at Avaya would love to be part of your journey also, to create such experiences which are remembered. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Mr. Saurabh, for the interesting session. We do have questions actually. Anybody raising your hands? We had earlier questions from Mr. Sanjay Narayan. Mr. Sanjay, if you can put your question and name the speaker. The question is for Mr. Jayant or Mr. Saurabh or Mr. Rohit. Please put your question. Okay, I think he's not here. Maybe some connectivity issue. We can move on to the next question we had from Mr. Nanda. Mr. Nanda, if you're there, you can ask a question to this concerned speaker.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Nanda, we can hear you.
Yeah,
You
this
can introduce
question-
yourself and ask a question, sir.
Yeah, I am a CX director from DreamWorks, and this question is for Mr. Rohit. Rohit, can you hear me? Mr. Rohit? Hello?
You can ask him a question.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mr. Jayant can try answering it, and I'll ask Mr. Rohit to connect. Yeah.
Yeah. This question actually, this was with respect to the telephone related, So, in fact, while Mr. Rohit was explaining about how for onboarding you could use some of the easier way to connect with the customers through WhatsApp and all. So why aren't they using those easy mediums which customer has access to while resolving the problems as well, So because they typically, in fact, there was one of my experience itself when I was trying to disconnect the connection through with one of the telecom provider. They redirected from the IVR to the mobile application, but I couldn't do that as well. So while only for onboarding they have those flexible way of bringing people in with whatever access the customer have. Similar tools and devices and channels should be used also for the customer resolution is one suggestion I have, and is the Vodafone is using those channels is one question. Second thing is that I see a lot of gap also in the issue resolution side of it actually. So where most of the time, in fact, they say our supervisor is not available, so we'll get back to you, and that never happens at all. So I'm sure this is not something which is experienced only in in telecom providers. It is across the board. So are there any steps taken specifically in Vodafone and or other examples what you could share is a question.
So
Rohit, you'd like to take that?
So two parts to your question, and I'll try and be brief because I don't want to impinge on someone's presentation and the timelines. Yeah. So obviously everything is a work in progress, right? So as I said, as we speak, our tech teams are hard at work in kind of devising a complete end-to-end digital journey for every transaction, so to speak. And also trying and integrating all the applications that we have, be it the consumer service app or the content app or the service applications, customer service applications. So really it's about integrating and getting a view, or having a customer view, having a systemic view of the complete customer history. So that's really work in progress as we speak. That was one. Yeah. And the second question was about the supervisor or not having access to the system or something. Did you speak about?
Yeah, I was talking about not able to. One is the customer care themselves representative are not in a position to take call during some complex issues that comes up during this pandemic time. So they should have a quick access or some other way where easily this can be passed on to the supervisor and then for them to guide them as well how to resolve it.
So definitely. So unfortunately there are still issues like network, and I don't want this to get into a longer discussion. So there's a few network issues. For example, we have the solution, which is handling the complete network intelligence interface with our frontline. But is that 100% secure? Do we want to hand something like this over to 30,000 agents across the country? You can understand what I'm saying. It's also customer secrecy, privacy, etc. So in telecom, there's always a very fine line that we have to tread. So there are some issues which, unfortunately, obviously the intent then is to point these issues out to the back end, which is more inside the company, far more better controlled, to be able to provide resolution. And obviously the rest of the issues get resolved at the front end. So again, as we speak, the whole intent is to make the front end as the issue resolver for as many issues as possible. At the last count, we have some 586 different kinds of customer queries and requests and issues which come up. So given quantum, it does, the whole objective is to kind of tread that line between privacy, security, and resolution.
Thank you.
Well, Ekta, if you've got time, I can add a little bit to it. Since I also advise Jio, I do think there is a bit of a context that I can bring to Mr. Nanda on this.
Sure.
See, your issue is not just for telecom operations, but for even other kind of organizations. The issues here are, one is the kind of systems that a company or that organization is able to employ. So how complex and how comprehensive those systems are. So as Rohit said, the kind of complaints that a customer would have and the classification under which it would fall, no single agent can be given all that information or is humanly capable of even assimilating all that information. So you must be able to, resolve that by sending it back to a different set of people or upscaling it or, sending it to different specialists. And the second issue and the bigger issue that comes in for almost all organizations in any customer grievance redressal process is the issue of authorization and empowerment. Who can take a decision? Typically, most of the call center employees who are the front end in dealing with this, besides the technology, does not have the authority to say that, okay, I can authorize this to be done for you. They have to get back to somebody who's senior to them up in the hierarchy. And that process itself takes a certain amount of time. You're very right. One of the biggest failures, as I'd also said during my talk, is the fact that when a customer lands up with an IVR or an automated system or a chatbot, he's simply given an inane response and an assurance of getting back. Now, the differentiation that will come in good service and good CX is where you actually get back within a very fixed time frame with a real solution. So companies will have to work towards empowering their employees. First of all, segmenting who it will go to, then empowering that person to be able to offer a real resolution immediately. Today, that resolution means spending a certain amount of money or incurring an expense. That employee should have the power to be able to spend that kind of money. So somebody says that, okay, I will get this product replaced for you. There is a monetary impact. Does that employee have the ability to take that decision? And that is what the organization will have to think through at a very senior level, be able to put it in place. Okay.
Yep, and I couldn't agree more, sir. That's something that I talked about as well. That agents should have the access to the resources so that they can better serve the customers. That is very important for a good CX to be there.
Yeah.
In fact, just to add one small thing, actually, while companies want to retain the customers because losing customer to bringing a new customer 10 times more cost, also companies should be ready to let go customers as well, because I wanted to switch from regular internet to cable internet because it was not sufficient enough for me, or stability was not good enough. So even helping them to go off also is a good idea, so that they'll come back whenever they want to come back. So as part of the customer experience, they need to include that also to give up as well.
And frankly, that's true in the current pandemic, even for companies, how they treat their employees, right?
True.
The best companies are actually doing their bit, and you see these on LinkedIn on trying to outplace their surplus employees without really spoiling the relationship.
Absolutely.
Very right. In fact, we are moving from trying to affect or do things for the individual to on a more collective level, where we are as individuals not seeking as many benefits as we are trying to return them back. So this This pandemic is forcing us to change the way that we evaluate a lot of things. It's going to bring in a certain amount of change to value systems. So let's see how it develops.
Thank you, Mr. Saurabh, Jayant, and Rohit.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Rohit, Mr. Jayant, and Mr. Saurabh for answering the questions. Now, quickly moving, we're already running a little late, but we'll try to finish on time. So moving on to our next session, I would like to welcome Mr. Ankit Goenka, Head of Customer Experience at Bajaj Allianz.
What are they waiting for? So how do you understand that? And if you do customer experience systematically, I would divide it into 4 parts. One is understanding, listening to the customer, right? So people have many metrics, CSATs, NPS, going and doing the searches. Many of those things are there. But from that, how do you put the analytics on it, right? How do you prioritize what is the customer's problem? What does he actually mean? And overlay data on that. Unless and until you do that, the insights will always be meaningless. The third part is solutioning, and the solutioning can never be done by a customer experience team or a customer experience person, consultant. It has to be co-created with the process owner, right? Because these things cut across. If I'm selling a policy, at that time, it's not only the salesperson, but even what my backend is doing, what is my IT doing, all of them. So typical problem of silo mentality basically needs to be broken, and end-to-end journey to be thought about. That is the design bit. And then of course metrics and improvement. So for example, we all across in our company, we've started to do away with operational tags. We are saying it doesn't mean anything. What is the end-to-end the customer tag? From the first time he came to you for a claim till the time you gave him a final decision, not operational that he gave me a query, I responded to him, then my TAT is met. It doesn't mean anything for the customer, right? So how do you measure proactively? Because your surveys will always be reactive. They're always lag metrics. So how do you proactively measure them? And then kind of it's a circle. I wish I could have drawn it, but yeah, it actually feeds back to your voice of customer again.
No, I agree with you, Tapan. And just picking a point, from you talk about, that getting the analytics and the data and, that can help. And just going back to our previous presentation by Avaya, and I couldn't have agreed more about the multi, experience point which they mentioned, right? So with that, Nilesh, I want to ask you, when you talk about this customer experience, from a technology standpoint, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you want to tell us, based on your experience, that any company should be focusing on, so that they get this entire picture right?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and Ankit, hi Tapan. So just what the quote that Saurabh had put on his last slide, that kind of it's from Maya Angelou. It's very interesting. It says, people may forget what you said, people may forget what you did, but they will never forget how do you make them feel, like something like that.
Absolutely.
So I'm taking on those lines, and the feel factor, it's important. How do you now, you may find it a little bit tricky in terms of how do I go and make every customer feel exceptional, every time they interact with me. Bit tricky, But the feel factor is not about, how do you make them feel when they engage with you, but it's something like, just let me give you an example of, I did a little bit survey of my own, a very well-known credit card company. I checked with the people, my generation and one generation ahead of me, older generation. And they were like, boss, this company is the benchmark, right? The way the agents speak, the way they interact with you, very professional, and they are the benchmark, right? I said, yeah, that's my experience has been. They're really good. I then asked the younger generations, and they were like, we don't like it.
Actually,
yeah, I was like, why? There is a complete 180-degree shift in the two feedback. And the people said, the younger generation was like, that I can't do things on my own. Why do I have someone, I get a call and they keep asking me how I'm doing that day, how I'm feeling. That's pointless for me. I need to get things done on my way, the way I want it. And so it's the same thing. The company is trying to do, probably, doing the same thing to different generations. One generation loves it, other just hates it, right? So that feel factor, maybe it's a little bit of irritation is also adds to, if I'm not getting the channel that I prefer, as a, no matter which generation I am on, that adds to the irritation. Hey, I wish I could do this, but now company is forcing me to do that. That's an irritation. That is also a feeling that, stays with you, because the quote that says people never forget how you make them feel, right? That feeling could be a good as well as bad. So one is age-old thing. We need to think about all the generations and think about how do we make ourselves accessible across all the channels that are available, different touch points where people can choose how to interact, when to interact, where to interact, and so on. Right? That's, I think, probably that's many people have discussed that. Coming to the current context of putting this everything, if everything is moving to digital because digital adoption has gone up. Maybe we have, the current pandemic has forced us to use digital channels and so on, right? So some of the things, even somebody like I prefer to call people, if I need, my insurance renewal, I prefer call, everything is available on web and etc. I generally pick up the phone and call, right? That's how I am. But even I'm now kind of being forced to switch to digital channels and so on, right? And now I represent a technology company, which now we don't deal with the end customers directly, but we do interact with the organizations who have the end customers, right? So the trend that we are seeing in this case is a lot of the shift is to push the customers on the digital channels. Now, people who were doing this before pandemic, but after pandemic, we see the number of the inquiries and the pilots and the POCs have gone up dramatically, where now people want to push the end customers on the digital channels, make themselves available on the digital channels, etc. Right? So that's one fundamental shift that has accelerated. Not that I wouldn't say it has started right now, but it was there, but it has accelerated in this particular way, right? So those some of the things. Coming to some of the things from a technology perspective, Tapan, I completely echo what Tapan said. Is the other factors of the analytics, what customers are doing and trying to do, etc. The one important thing I personally feel is when we are talking about giving customers access to all touch points of their choice. As an organization, we need to know how the customers are engaging with us, right? When, let's say, on an average, if you look at it these days, we have about 6.5 or 6.7. There was some survey, I don't remember, but around that, customer touch point. Let's say round it up to 7 touch points that we have. Now, the key is also when we say the proactive is the customer experience, right? That's what you say. Now, how do we define that proactiveness, or how do we know that the proactive customer service is possible when we know how these customers are engaging with us across multiple channels? And then the customer journey becomes very important. If you are capturing the customer journey, it helps us deliver that proactive customer experience, and ultimately that makes them feel good, right? So that is also becoming essential this day. So I've a lot of things to say.
No, I agree. No, I agree. And as you said, Nilesh, digital adoption and all those stuff. And this is an old, now an old WhatsApp joke going on. They say that, digital adoption of a company who's driving, is it the CEO or the, coronavirus, right?
Absolutely.
We all know the answer, right? Right. Having said that, the one point which you actually, you touched upon regarding the expectation, right? So do you think that with this new normal and, we are now getting into the unlock phases and, obviously this is now the new normal, right? Do you think the customer expectations are changing, with this, pre-COVID and post-COVID? As you said, earlier, if there is an issue, you wanted to renew your policy, you would simply just pick up your phone and call the call center.
Yeah.
But do you think right now, the consumer psyche is also changing and the expectations are also changing? So,
Yeah.
Nilesh,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just take 2 minutes on this. Just
Sure.
so yes, one is example, my own example, but my father hated using the mobile transactions, right, on the UPI, and he never liked it. He said cash is the king. I'll use cash, right? Mobile, somebody will fraud me, I don't know, and all those things. But now today, because there's a no, absolutely physical touch is being avoided, even he is like, okay, tell me how do I use the UPI payment, right? So there is definitely a shift happening with the way consumer interact, and that has to be factored by the organizations as well, and the way we are shipping. Again, I interact with a lot of customers, a lot of organizations, enterprises. One thing that immediately after COVID, after a month or so, I was speaking with multiple customers that we serve, and checking on, what is the impact on the how their call volumes, is there an impact, number of agents.
Sure.
We were helping them move some agents to work from home, etc. So on an average, I could see the call volumes were down by about 25-30%. Obviously, people stop calling. There is no point calling, and then maybe using mobile applications or something else. But the number of people available working from home who were equipped with the everything that they could serve their customers, they were only down. They were down by about 70-75%, right? So call volumes were down by just 20-25%. The people serving to them, the capacity was down by 75%. And as a result, the calls in queue, the wait time went up, everything went up, and so on, right? So obviously our experience was suffering, but that point in time the priority was, let's forget about experience right now. We are in pandemic. Let us serve as best as we could to the customers and so on. But slowly the shift was also making, how do I push this traffic to the digital channels, right? And then obviously by the time the number of agents, people could get, the agents could start work from home, the PCs were delivered after the initial phase was over, and so that. So the number of people went up who could work from home. But
No,
that was the
I
time.
agree
But
with you.
that correct. So the focus now, it shifted of moving everything to digital. How do I push the people? Because ultimately, organizations are realizing the voice, making people work. Especially in the contact center, when they call, the voice quality and everything has to be factored. Bandwidth is not available everywhere. Not all agents have bandwidth, etc. So
No, I agree. In fact, just to share, at our company, Bajaj General Insurance, during the pandemic, we actually saw some really, crazy numbers, right? Those numbers were that our customer footprint actually didn't came down. So the overall customer footprint that we were having, pre-COVID, it really continued the same way. But our on-call center actually went up to 80%.
Okay.
And our complaints actually went down by 90%. Right, so we saw that we saw that correlation that the digital assets and the self-servicing actually not only helped the company but helped the customer as well, because their complaints, their issues actually came down drastically. Right, so I agree with you, and Tapan, I actually want to ask you. We were talking about this call center, we talk about various issues and all the stuff, but with this new normal, how do you really manage the walk-ins? The customers who are coming at the branches, because there you need to keep in mind the safety of your employees as well as the safety of the customer, and also not compromising on the overall experience that the customer may have at the branch, for that matter. So how do you really, manage that piece?
So there are 2 points to that. You mentioned safety of employees as well as safety of customers. I think safety of employees, Aditya Birla, and not only health insurance, I can talk about all Aditya Birla Capital businesses. Our branches have opened. A lot of precautions are being taken, sanitization, cleaning, etc., masks. So those things are obviously best left unsaid. We are doing that, and that's hygiene now. But I think the biggest point is how safe does the customer feel walking into the branch? And I actually want to quote one example. Big Bazaar actually did this very, very well. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I think Big Bazaar did it very, very well. And I was talking to their marketing heads and everyone. And you know what they did a very smart thing. They asked all the store managers to take real-time videos of the good things that they had done, right? In terms of, and those videos looked authentic. They obviously marketing budgets at this time and all those problems, but the kind of videos they took and they showed, you know, us that, you know, they feel authentic and they just gave a sense of security to the customer walking in. In health insurance, we particularly don't have as much customer walk-in as in GI or life insurance, but we do have a lot of advisor walk-in. Currently, the advisors have also picked up the new digital way of selling. While we were always pushing our digital sales, selling digitally, etc., etc. There always used to be some kind of resistance coming back from channel, right? Which has now shattered, right? I mean,
I can relate to that.
Yeah, nearly all policies are being sold digitally. So things that we were trying to do for many years now, in a few months we've been able to achieve. So I think, and one more thing, see, for health insurance, a touch point which is more important than a branch walk-in is actually the medical examination, right? So there, actually, what we had done very quickly, we had moved to a entirely video based PPMC and medical examination, and we did that very quickly, right? Which it's obvious customers are not going to go into the diagnostic center, so how could we maintaining a risk give a better experience to the customer? So those are the things that you proactively think and you kind of deliver.
No, I agree, and all that what you said, I can completely relate, because at our end also, all those medical checkups and all, we quickly moved to virtual and did that. All those reimbursement, we said no need to send the physical documents. We'll take it through the scan on the app and all. In fact, at our branches, what we also call it as a touchless UI. Okay, it's a very simple thing that we did, right? What we did is we basically created QR codes for a lot of things, against each and every journey that the customer or an agent wants. And if the customer or an agent is walking into a branch, we basically created those QR codes and those were right there.
Yeah.
You don't have to, touch anything. It's your smartphone, just scan it, and the entire journey you can, go through. Even our WhatsApp servicing, we said that, put a QR code. There's a customer who's walking in, right? Customer scans the QR and it takes us, the customer to the WhatsApp account of Magic, where we have put our AI, bot, which handles a lot of stuff. And in case the bot is not able to handle, we seamlessly transfer it to an agent at the backend.
Yeah.
So we're not leaving it there, saying that, hey, there is only digital, right? And if digital is not going to work, there is no human touch, right? So we are basically making sure that there is a fine balance between that. In fact, one more thing which we did, on the health insurance side, we saw that, while, there was a drop in the cashless, so to say, because those typical, cashless hospitalizations, which used to happen pre-COVID because of a virus infection or, fever or something of that sort, those actually, demolished, right? So obviously the overall volume came down. But whosoever was actually going to hospitals, right, their anxiety levels actually went up.
Yeah.
Right. So what we did, we basically said we will deploy a virtual RM at hospital. Now, these virtual RMs, they are sitting at their home. They have got the entire technology stack. As Nilesh was saying, the entire CRM is there. They can view the customer 360. Everything is available. And as soon as there is a cashless which gets triggered at the hospital, this virtual RM gets triggered.
Yeah.
They get in touch with the attendant or the patient, depending upon who's in a position to talk. And they say that, hey, you don't really worry about the hospital administration work. You take care of the patient, you get the surgery done, the medical treatment done, and we'll take care of the everything else. The anxiety levels of those customers actually vanished. And our NPS there actually went to 100.
Yeah. So I think that's
we call
very
it as a
interesting.
digital thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because the same thing we had started, we call it virtual care managers. Right,
Sure.
But the concept is same, right? I mean, and in fact, we started pre-COVID. Since inception, we've had that, where we say that at the time of hospitalization, you really don't want to, either you are sick or your family member is sick. Paperwork is the last thing you want to do, right? And how do you manage anxiety? So we've come up with virtual care managers right from inception of the company, right? And we it is the same thing, right?
I agree.
And but I want to allude to one point, that Nilesh had said in the beginning, right? Between expectation and a wow, right? Now, the first time you do it, it becomes a wow. The second time it becomes expectation, right? So,
Absolutely.
kind of how do you, and that's how CX is evolving actually. And, everything that you do the first time, the second time is like, yeah, so what's new, right? So I think we really need to keep on churning ideas there and,
no, I agree.
Coming up, yeah.
And Ekta is looking at us, and there is a message from Ekta as well. I guess we are running out of time, right? So Ekta, we can get into a couple of questions, right, from the audience, and then we can wrap up.
Sure. So audience, do we have any questions? I have set the instructions in the chat room. You can raise your hands, introduce yourself, and put the question to the speakers here. So if we have any, we can take this further for at least more 5 to 6 minutes.
Sure.
We're just waiting for people to raise their hands or ask the question. Or you can just start, tell your name, and you can introduce and start the question.
Since we are not having any question, let me share. There's one great example which comes to my mind. Regarding customer service experience put together. I'll not name the company, but this is a very big brand of car manufacturer. Okay, and its CEO basically got an email from a customer which says that, hey, my car is allergic to vanilla ice cream. Now just think about that CEO, right? It's a very old example, many of us must have, heard about it, right? But really, really powerful, right? That look at that CEO, he's a car manufacturer, right? And he's getting a message, a letter from the customer that, hey, my car is allergic to vanilla ice cream, right? So what does a CEO do in that case? What exactly that CEO actually did was he basically sent out his best engineer on the field, right, to actually look at what's exactly happening, right? And what that engineer found out was that this family had a tradition of going out daily to eat ice cream after the dinner, right? And every day used to decide that, which flavor they would take. So every day would be a new flavor, right? And in reality, it was happening that the day when they were actually eating vanilla ice cream, their car would not start while they were coming back from the parlor to their home. And that's a fact. That engineer also for multiple days monitored it. He looked at all the, technical parameters that any engineer would want to look at, but he couldn't find. But when he went into deep and applied his logic as a normal engineer would do, he found out that the day when they actually take the vanilla ice cream, right, the time that it takes from that, parlor shop to back to their car, the vapor lock of the car would get triggered. And hence the car would not start. However, any other flavor, because of the dynamics, the way, that store had, they were taking a little more longer, and that vapor lock was getting unlocked automatically. So that was the reason, right? So look at customer service from that point of view, that, at times we say that, the agent or everybody should know each and everything. And as Mr. Jain also mentioned at the beginning, it's not possible, right? But when you decide to resolve something and you go deep into it, you will be able to, resolve it.
Yeah, that was a really great closing example, I would say. So I think since we didn't have question, but Mr. Ankit closed it very well. I think there is something in the, okay, great. So coming to the closure of this webinar, I would like to thank all of you for taking out your precious time, thought leaders and the audiences. You guys were great. I hope you all had a great session interacting with our speakers as well. We shall be updating the video link on our website shortly and requesting you all to please respond to our feedback form, which our team is already sharing with you. And also kindly follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for our future webinars, which are coming soon in this month as well, in September also lined up. And thank you once again, everyone. Stay safe. Happy
Thanks,
Independence
Tapan.
Day.
Thanks, Nilesh.
Have a nice weekend. Yeah.
Thank you everyone. Thanks.
Yeah, happy Independence Day in advance, everyone. Be safe, enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all the
Thank
thought
you.
leaders. Thank you all the audiences.
Bye.
Bye.